What is up, guys? Kid Kritic is back with the 11th episode of the Kid Kritic Mvie Podcast, where we talk about movies and all that other fun stuff. And as always, we got a fantastic episode lined up for you folks today. We're going to run down some of the stuff that happened down at the Venice Film Festival, because, I just didn't go because I'm Kid Kritic. I got tons of stuff to do, but that's besides the point. But anyways, we're going to talk about some more Spider-Man nonsense going around. It's insane. We got a bunch of trailers that came out this week, and we got a whole lot of other fun stuff to talk about. So with that said, let's just get this thing started, and let's start this podcast.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Han Solo. I'm Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Bond.
Up in the sky, it's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
Hasta la vista, baby.
Say hello to my little friend!
Here's Johnny.
and here we go.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to the 11th episode of the Kid Kritic Mvie Podcast, where we talk about movies and a bunch of other fun stuff. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get talking. Alright, so last weekend, Pet Sematary came out, right? So I'm like, you know what? I like that movie quite a bit. I know most people did not like that film when it came out, but I'm talking the new one, not the original. But so I rewatched it. I rented it, rewatched it, and I don't know if it's because there's like a difference between watching horror movies at home between the theater, and to be honest, I think there is. But I'll get to that in a second. Because when I watched Pet Sematary, I don't know, just something about it didn't hit me as much as it did the first time. Because the first time, like, I'm not gonna lie, this is tons of fun. But the second time around, I'm like, I don't know, something's off about this movie that I'm just not digging that I did the first time around. Now, I don't know if it's because watching horror movies at home isn't like as loud or like bombastic as it is in the movie theater. Now, that probably is the solution to this problem. But it's very interesting because, like, if you were to see a movie like The Conjuring or something, then you see it again at home, that movie is still scary. Now, is it as scary as it was in the theater? Probably not, because it was louder in that theater, unless you have, like, a surround sound system or something. I don't know if it was the movie's fault, and to be honest, maybe it was. Now, I don't dislike the movie. My appreciation for the film was definitely nowhere near as high as it was the first time. Like, if you see my review, I was raving about Pet Sematary. I loved it. But then seeing it the second time around, I don't know. But like I said before, maybe it's because I saw it at home. But again, like I said, the example, you watch The Conjuring, which I love, that movie is still creepy. You watch The Shining at home, that movie is still creepy. So that's probably more of the film's fault. But it also hints at the fact on how much a movie theater kind of enhances the experience, not only watching it with other people, as long as they're good, not only watching it with other people, but it's the big screen. Come on, with, the big, loud, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome, and maybe that's why. Like you watch A Quiet Place, it's still intense. It is still absolutely intense as the first time you watched it, at least in my opinion. So anyways, yeah, just thought, that was kind of curious, and I rewatched Pet Sematary. So yeah. But another movie that I watched like some 15-20 minutes of, I watched Batman Begins, which is a movie I have not seen in a while. Most people actually prefer Batman Begins over The Dark Knight, and I'm just here to call you crazy. But even though Batman Begins is still a great movie, but it's just the fact that The Dark Knight is one of the greatest movies of all time. So whatever. But so I was watching Batman Begins, and then I never knew this, but the guy who plays Joffrey in Game of Thrones, or did play Joffrey, was in Batman Begins. I never knew that. Now he looks like he looks like a 10-year-old in Batman Begins, but I was surprised. And by the way, Batman Begins, even though I call people crazy who say it's better than The Dark Knight, that movie is still awesome. And I think the thing that Batman Begins has over any Batman movie, whether it's the '89 Tim Burton Batman, Batman Returns, Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises or even the Ben Affleck incarnation is that I think that movie pictured Gotham City the best. You know, like this dirty city with this crime. It's just like ugh, you know. And I think it pictured that the best, especially when they were in Arkham, because you see all the smog. Because like in '89's Tim Burton's Batman, that is a Tim Burton-y Gotham City. And in The Dark Knight, though I hate to say it, it feels more like a Chicago than Gotham City, and Dark Knight Rises as well. And then, I mean, sure, you have the Joel Schumacher Batman, so we don't need to talk about those. But I think that Batman Begins pictured Gotham City the best. But anyways, shout out to Batman Begins and Joffrey, who makes a special appearance. So, anyways, another movie that I watched as well. I just had a straight-on movie day this past weekend. I watched The King of Comedy, alright, in preparation for the Joker, which, by the way, watching that movie just makes me realize, I'm like, just seeing the trailers for Joker, I mean, they're very similar. You definitely see that from some of the reactions, which we'll talk about later. And I mean, it just makes me so excited for Joker. I just also watched Dark Crystal for the very first time in preparation for the Netflix series, which I did start watching. And I've only seen the first episode, but it is pretty awesome. So I also rewatched the original Dark Crystal, and it's pretty great. And I also watched Young Guns, and you can't go wrong with Young Guns. And I mean, what a diversity of films I watched there. Dark Crystal, Young Guns, and King of Comedy. That's kind of funny. Alright, so now let's get into some of this movie news. So, yesterday I had the chance to go watch It Chapter 2, and make sure to go check out my review, which is out right at this moment. And so, obviously they play trailers before movies. Did you guys know that they play trailers before movies? I never knew that. Well, Warner Brothers has been doing this marketing tactic, if you want to call it, of putting out trailers for a movie that they have coming out before one of their films, and it's just not released online. Like they did that with Tenet, and now they're doing that with Harley Quinn and the Emancipation of Billy Bob and Kabillions in the long title. And I believe Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of Harley Quinn. I don't know, but so yeah, they played a brief trailer before It Chapter 2, and I'm like, well, first of all, it wasn't even a trailer. Like, if you don't call that the Rise of Skywalker special look a trailer, then you do not call this a trailer, because it's just not. It's like a little short sizzle reel. And then they also played a trailer which is supposed to come out on Sunday, and that is the Doctor Sleep trailer. So I already saw it, so I can't do a trailer reaction unless I fake it, which I never do. It's all natural, of course. But so they played that and the Doctor Sleep trailer. And to be honest, I don't think it's a smart move for them to put trailers for one of their upcoming movies just in theaters and not online. Because where do people watch their trailers more? Online. Because it's not like back in the 90s or even early 2000s, maybe early 2000s, before the early 2000s, I should just say, where people would go to the movies just to watch trailers. Like you hear many stories of when Phantom Menace was coming out and people going to the movies just to watch that trailer. And obviously that never happens anymore. I love seeing trailers on the big screen, however, but it's just a different time. And I mean, maybe it's a strategy that does work out for Warner Brothers, but I mean, who even knows that these trailers are before these movies, except for the movie punditry fandom film people like Kid Kritic. If you were to ask grandma down the street, hey, did you know that the Harley Quinn if she even knows what Harley Quinn, the Birds of Prey movie, do you know that the Birds of Prey trailer is playing before It Chapter 2? Grandma would probably say no. And I mean, I don't think it's smart. I just don't think it's smart. But it's interesting. Definitely interesting. I mean, you haven't seen this in like forever. So I mean, who knows? I mean, I didn't see the Tenet one. So even though I heard that one was just like 20 seconds, but the Birds of Prey one, to be honest, I'm not even that excited for the movie. Maybe it's great. Hopefully, it is great. But as far as the Doctor Sleep goes, I mean, they're gonna release it online anyways. But by the way, I'll say this: that the trailer was good for Doctor Sleep. I don't think it was as good as the first one, but you definitely get more of what the film's gonna be about, and it's definitely more based off of the Doctor Sleep novel, also written by Stephen King. So yeah, there's that topic. So I watched something, and that is the Dave Chappelle Netflix special. That's probably the most non-controversial thing ever. So I mean, this special, excuse me. So first of all, I do like Dave Chappelle. He's not my favorite comedian of all time, but I do like him quite a bit. And if somebody who has seen his comedy, definitely, especially when you see this one, he has no filter, which makes him hilarious. So this special has just been controversial, to say the least. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, even with Rotten Tomatoes, there's been a lot of stuff with them. But look, I liked the special. I actually did. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I laughed. I laughed quite a bit. And he points out that we live in a sensitive society, which I've talked about before. And it's funny because literally after that special, I searched up the most beloved comedian of all time, George Carlin. I searched up George Carlin jokes, and the first thing pops up is George Carlin rape joke. I mean, he's not the only one. I mean, you have a bunch of comedians. I mean, that's the whole thing about comedy, is about joking about things that people don't have the guts to joke about, like Dave Chappelle. Now, I understand if somebody got offended because he says a lot of things in this special. That's definitely like, ooh, that's definitely gonna offend someone. And if you're offended, then it's your right to be offended. And I personally enjoyed it, and I also watched actually Jeremy Johns' review on this, and one of the things that I got out of it is basically, I'm paraphrasing this, but he basically says that he says things that has crossed our minds before, and he just had the guts to say them, and he brings up subjects that are worth talking about, and he does bring up subjects that are worth talking about, and he makes some true points. He really does. I mean, yes, he jokes about stuff like the Michael Jackson subject. He jokes about the gun situation. He jokes about a bunch of other stuff that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But he makes a point where he talks about stuff that is worth talking about. And I'm not going to lie, it kind of sucks that we live in a society that censors art. Because look at The Hunt. That movie's not coming out. Why? Because people just started bashing it to the point where it's just like, it's not just worth putting it out there anymore. And Dave Chappelle also kind of points that out, and I mean, it kind of sucks. It really does. I mean, it's not like Dave Chappelle before he went up there and he was like the Joker and was like, oh, we're gonna start some chaos. It's gonna be, I want to just make everybody offended and angry. Like, that wasn't his point. But again, like I've said before, it's everybody's right to get offended. It really is. It absolutely is. I mean, it's also about kind of how you react to it, because then if you start bashing them, then, I mean, it's like, it's a slippery slope, to say the least, and he definitely went down a slippery slope. To me, I don't think he crossed the line, but he definitely could have gone there, especially with the Michael Jackson stuff. But, I mean, I liked it. I didn't love it, but, yeah, I mean, yeah. So moving on to some more happier stuff, I guess you can say. So some trailers came out. Now the first one that came out is the second trailer for Jojo Rabbit, which make sure to see my trailer reactions for all these, the next couple movies I'm about to talk about. So Jojo Rabbit, the second trailer came out, and I absolutely dug it. Like, if you saw my trailer reaction, I said that this movie looks like it's gonna have a bunch of heart. The cast looks fantastic. It looks hilarious. Taika Waititi as Hitler looks absolutely fantastic. Just looks absolutely fantastic. And the cast is great, and it's premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival, which, pretty soon, in the next day or two, so that we'll probably get our first reactions there, and I'm sure it'll be great. The Bad Boys for Life trailer came out. I didn't love the trailer. I really didn't. I thought it was fine. The beginning scene when they're getting out of the car, I thought was pretty funny, and I thought the last scene when their new recruits or whatever is singing the Bad Boys song, I thought that was pretty funny. But other than that, I mean, the action looks like tons of fun. You definitely felt the chemistry again between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. And I've seen people make the point that Martin Lawrence just looks like he hasn't done it in a while, which I kind of agree with, to be honest. But I mean, it looks fine. It's a Bad Boys trailer, so. And then another trailer came out for the new Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Foxx film, also starring Brie Larson, for Just Mercy. That film looks absolutely phenomenal. I believe it just premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, so that's going to be pretty, well, not fun, but pretty awesome to see, because I'm sure it'll be another great movie. And will Michael B. Jordan get an Oscar nomination? Who knows? But Jamie Foxx looks fantastic in this movie, and so does Brie Larson and everyone else that's in this movie. So those are the trailers that came out this week. So let's move on to some other news, and boy am I excited for this, because we're talking about some more Mandalorian. And the news came out that the Mandalorian will be exploring the origins, that is right, the origins of the First Order. Basically, Jon Favreau, he came out and said, I'm just going to read his quote here, and it says, also, what could happen in the 30 years between celebrating the defeat of the Empire and the First Order? You come in on Episode 7, not just starting out, they're pretty far along. And then they kind of go on from there. So I'm definitely interested into that, to see how the First Order came about. And this just kind of hints at more that not only is the Mandalorian going to be about this bounty hunter gunslinger character, but it's also going to be about what's happening in the galaxy. Because also Dave Filoni came out with this quote that I loved, and basically what he said is that this doesn't turn into a good guy universe because you blew up 2 Death Stars. You get that the rebels won, and they're trying to establish a republic, but there's no way that could have set in for everybody all at once. You have Interwestern where you're out on the frontier, and there might be Washington, and they might have some marshals, but sometimes, good luck finding one. And those comments just get me more excited, because it shows that at the end of Return of the Jedi, yes, everything's a happy ending. The Ewoks are dancing around. It's fantastic. Fireworks at every single planet. It's amazing. We're having fun. But there's no order. There's no rule. The rebels are having difficulty in making new rules, so it's chaos, basically, and I love that, and you definitely saw that from the trailer, which I loved, and this just gets me more excited for this Mandalorian show. So basically, back to this First Order stuff. So I'm excited. Will Snoke appear? I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, I don't know what he's doing. I see, the one thing that I don't like about this new trilogy is that I don't think they explored Snoke very well at all. Hopefully Rise of Skywalker does like a pretty good job, because to be honest, he was just a waste, in my opinion. Now, I don't think the First Order stuff will be a huge part of the show, but I'm sure there'll definitely be tons of references. Maybe they go off to a planet and you see like stormtroopers, like a big troop of stormtroopers just building and building and building as like the First Order. So that could be pretty cool, and it definitely excites me even more. Move on to some other news. So Hobbs and Shaw has almost passed the $700 million mark. It's currently at 690, but that's basically saying, Tyrese Gibson, shut your mouth, because you know nothing. Because I'm The Rock, and this is Jason Statham, my pal, and by the way, we're against Idris Elba. So yeah, that's basically what that's saying. Now, I'm happy for the movie. I had quite a bit of fun with the film. I mean, was I expecting around this mark? Yeah, probably. I don't. Where do I think it'll probably finish? I'd say close to 800, maybe close to 800, maybe. I don't think it'll reach the $800 million mark, but definitely be close. Actually, no, take that back. I think $760 million, which is pretty good. Now, this movie has a $200 million production budget, which is insane. Absolutely ludicrous. Get it? Ludicrous. Whatever. But it's absolutely insane that this movie had a $200 million budget. Goodness gracious. But yeah, I applaud the film. I think it deserves it. It's a fun action film. I think it's definitely... It's definitely better than the 8th Fast and the Furious, but I put it in there with no, I think it's on par. I put it in between the 8th Fast and the Furious and like the 7th and the 6th and the 5th Fast and the Furious films. I put it like in between there, but it's definitely tons of fun. If you haven't seen it, make sure to go check it out. Now, another piece of news that popped up is that Tomb Raider, that is right, not Tomb Raider starring Angelina Jolie, no, the Tomb Raider starring Alicia Vikander that came out, I don't know, a couple years ago. Don't remember, I actually haven't seen it yet, but basically, it's getting a sequel, which surprises me, I'm not gonna lie, either though I've not seen the movie, either though I hear that the movie is not as bad as, let's say, some other video game films, we'll just say at that. But the reason why I'm surprised is because this movie didn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, it made $274 million, which is a lot of money. But its production budget was like $94 million plus marketing, so we'll say, we'll add on like another $30 million, so we'll say like $120 million. That doesn't, I mean, that's fine. It's not the best. I think it probably barely breaks even. But I'm surprised because of that, and you didn't hear many people talk about it. It had a March release date. I don't know what came out during that time. I think it came out like, 2017, I think. But I haven't seen it. But I'm definitely surprised because the box office, it's not like Jumanji where it came out and it just crushed. But it doesn't need to make Jumanji numbers, obviously. But still, it didn't make the most amount of money. It barely broke even. So I'm surprised. I mean, domestically, it only made $58 million. Now, only made $58 million. But it only made $58 million, so it wasn't like a smash hit. So I'm kind of surprised. But Alicia Vikander is coming back for the role, and the director of this new one, because I don't know if I don't think the previous director's coming back, and that is Ben Wheatley, who made a film called Free Fire a couple years ago, which I actually wanted to see, and I hear it's pretty good. It has like Brie Larson and a bunch of other people huge cast, but so it could be interesting. I hear that movie's also really good, so I would probably check out the first Tomb Raider before I check out Tomb Raider 2 because, it's just got to. So I don't know if you guys know about this character. He goes by the name of Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker. I don't know if you guys know him. They made a couple movies about him. I think it was in these little films called Avengers. I mean, he has had a couple reboots. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. But basically, so obviously the whole thing between Marvel/Disney and Sony, that whole thing that I have a video on that you can go check out. But basically, the chief of Sony just puts more of a stamp on it by basically saying that, we love Marvel, we really do, but just right now we just want to do our own thing, basically, because you guys were just asking for too much in the first place. But basically, he just says for the moment the door is closed on making a deal. Now people are freaking out, obviously, and for good reason. But the key word is for now. It's not like, oh, we're closing the door for good. We're locking it. We're throwing the key away. It's done. Over. Bye. No, he says that we're closing the door for now. I mean, I don't expect to see Spider-Man back in an MCU movie in the next 1 or 2 years. But, I mean, you never know. You could get Spider-Man back. I mean, Tom Holland's still going to be Peter Parker as far as I know. I mean, maybe they're pulling a Ben Affleck as Batman. So, I mean, this just puts more of a stamp on it, that the fact that we won't see Spider-Man back in the MCU, at least for quite a while. Now, I don't know what they planned for Spider-Man in the future, in the MCU. So, I'm not totally bummed about it because because Spider-Man Far From Home, I'm not going to spoil it, but it leaves off on that cliffhanger, but you can just continue that in another Sony Spider-Man film. So, I mean, I'm not totally bummed because, again, I don't know what was planned for the character. So, yeah, with that said, I mean, that's all I have for that. So, let's talk about Netflix some more. Netflix is just, wrecking shop lately. But the news came out that Netflix is going to do 1 episode a week. Not all shows, but some shows. Now, people would obviously be in absolute rage because of that, and again, for good reason. But I don't mind it. I really don't. To be honest, I kind of like it And it's a smart business move because, look, Stranger Things came out and people talked about it for 2 days. We watched it one day. It was really good. And yeah, bye. It just flew by like nothing. It flew by faster than Superman could. So it doesn't really bother me. And again, it's a smart business move because it keeps people talking and talking and talking. Look at HBO. Look at a show like Game of Thrones, for example. Look at a show like Barry, for example. Look at a show like Chernobyl. And I think this could be pretty smart. And a week goes by fast anyways, so I don't really care. But for your binge watchers out there, this is bad news for you. So now that we got all those subtopics, I would say, out of the way, let's get down to the main topic, and that is the Venice Film Festival. That is right, folks, the Venice Film Festival, which happens in Europe. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it happens in Europe. I just found that out. That was just shocking to me. But the Venice Film Festival just happened, and some movies premiered there. They do that too. But some movies premiered there. So let's talk about some of the reactions from these films. So the first one I'd like to talk about, I don't know if you guys have heard of this film. It's about this character. He has a clown paint, and I think it goes by the name of Joker. The first Joker reactions came out last weekend, and the last time I checked, Joker had like an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I believe it's still there, which is a very good score. Yeah, it's still at 85% with 48 reviews, so that's really good. So Joker, some of the reactions that came out. So let's start off with reading these reactions. So Eric Davis, he comes out. It says Joker is a bold, bodacious love letter to Scorsese's King of Comedy. Hey, I just watched that. Told through the lens of DC's most iconic villain, dark, disturbing, brutal, and sad. It's about an abused man who doesn't start living until he's dead inside. Joaquin Phoenix is so good. That sounds like a very positive film. Man. So that's definitely, that excites me, obviously. You definitely saw the King of Comedy elements in that trailer. So that's pretty good. I'm probably going to mess up this guy's name. Oasis. I'm just going to say, I'm just going to, Oasis Irfan? I'm sorry, but I butchered his name. I'm sorry. But he basically says, Joker is a masterpiece. The film is sinister and uncomfortable in the best way. I'm actually just shocked it exists. This is a DC film, and it's dark and disturbing. I am in pure awe, and I'm actually delirious. Whoa. I was not at all expecting that. Now, he kind of points out something like when he says this is a DC film, basically saying that, DC / Warner Brothers took a risk with this movie, and it looks like, and if it makes money at least, it will definitely pay off, because as far as the quality goes, it sounds pretty good. So let's move on to the next reaction, which is from another Davis, Brandon Davis, who says, I saw Joker, and it is unlike anything before it. The movie is dark, thrilling, and chilling, an insane masterpiece. The movie absolutely transcends being a comic book film and acts as a character study, which at times will make audiences uncomfortable in wild ways. That's definitely something that you hear, is that this film is definitely a character study, and I hear that Joaquin Phoenix is like the primary person in this movie. Like, the supporting cast doesn't really get as much runtime in this film, kind of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it focused on Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, where this movie just focuses on Joaquin Phoenix, which I like. So those were some of the reactions for Joker. This movie is just getting tons of buzz. Joaquin Phoenix is getting Oscar buzz, which is pretty great. I'll actually read some of these reviews down here on Rotten Tomatoes. I'll read some of the rotten ones, to just, balance it out a little bit. So Nicholas Barber says from BBC.com, says, well, okay, Phillips and Silver are entitled to imagine any version of the Joker they like, but their film is way too superficial to take seriously as a study of class conflict and mental illness. Well, that's interesting. David Ehrlich, I'm sorry if I butchered your last name, but he's from IndieWire and says, nothing less than an agent of unbridled chaos. Whoa. So then the next one comes from Alfonso Durald from The Wrap and says, if you strip the Joker and his nearly 80-year history as a cultural icon out of this film, as well as all the 1970s movie homages, there's not a whole lot left except for Phoenix's performance, and it's the kind of turn that's destined to be divisive. Again, I do feel like this movie might be divisive, especially among the audience. That's probably not as much as the critics. I mean, it already has an 85%. But he kind of hints at the fact that this movie will most likely be divisive, which is just the thing we need, right? But I personally think I'm probably gonna love this movie. You have King of Comedy elements, Scorsese elements. The cast is great. Joaquin Phoenix sounds awesome, and you got Robert De Niro in there as well. Zazie Beetz. So I mean, the main consensus from this is that it's just a dark movie. It's a character study. Joaquin Phoenix's performance is just utterly fantastic, and you also get some that say Todd Phillips' directions are awesome in this movie. And I definitely think probably Joaquin, before seeing the movie, I mean, just from the trailers, Joaquin Phoenix is probably going to get nominated for this movie. Maybe even Todd Phillips, and maybe it gets nominated for Best Picture. Who knows? But I'm I'm so hyped. I mean, after seeing It Chapter 2, this movie is, it's been my second most anticipated film for the rest of the year, just behind another little movie called Star Wars. So let's talk about another movie that premiered at this film festival, and that was Brad Pitt's Ad Astra. Now, I like the trailer. Make sure to check out my trailer reactions, by the way, of this movie on the Kid Kritic channel. So the reactions came out, and they're pretty darn good, which is pretty darn good. So the film also has an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes with 31 reviews, which is good. So some of the reactions basically say Brad Pitt blurs the line between fear and precision so easily that it's a haunting experience. From Candice Frederick from The Wrap. That's pretty good praise for Brad Pitt. He's a great guy. I just had lunch with him yesterday. He's just a great guy. He was just telling me like all of his experience in making this movie. He said that when they were on the moon shooting it, and that it was just nuts shooting the film. And just shooting a movie on the moon is absolutely insane. But David Sexton says from London Evening Standard, which is probably a thing from London because I've never heard of it, and he basically says, Gravity, Interstellar, or even First Man, this is not. Despite the contributions of cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema and composer Max Richter. So that's kind of one of the rotten ones, so he didn't sound like he was like that movie very much. But Justin Chang comes out and says, somber, stirring, ridiculous, and just shy of sublime. Ooh, he a little bit of rhymes there. But he liked the movie, which is pretty good. It's somber, which is pretty curious. Ridiculous. And by the way, speaking of ridiculous, so a new clip came out for Ad Astra. I'm not seeing it because I want to see the movie and I want to see it in context. But a new clip came out, basically Brad Pitt fighting these people. I don't even know if they're people on the moon. I mean, that sounds awesome. And Justin Chang definitely hints at that. So David Ehrlich says one of the most ruminative, withdrawn, and curiously optimistic space odysseys, The Side of Solaris. And he rated this movie an A, so that's good. Let's see here. Stephanie Zacharick. Oh my gosh. These last names are killing me. But she basically says Ad Astra works not least because every minute of it is gorgeous to look at. I also heard that a lot of the cinematography is just phenomenal. Another reaction here from Laura Portier says Ad Astra stays far too close to Earth, and that's to its detriment. So she's definitely one of the more negatives. Stays far too close to Earth. I mean, I'd rather have it in space, obviously. I mean, who wouldn't? But so that definitely has me curious. I'll read two more here. Ian Sandwell from Digital Spy says, propelled by one of Brad Pitt's finest performances, it's a thrilling and thought-provoking journey through space and one of the best movies of the year. Richard Trenholm says, Pitt stunningly embodies the astronaut stepping into the crushing vacuum of space, an even more desolate vacuum left by a missing father. Alright, so those are some of the reactions from Ad Astra. So basically, like, the common thing is that Brad Pitt's phenomenal, cinematography is great, and it's a fun space adventure that's just absolutely ridiculous and tons of fun. And it has elements of Interstellar in there. So I'm definitely interested. Obviously, there's a couple people that didn't like it. I mean, that's with all films. So I am definitely hyped for that Ad Astra. I wasn't the biggest fan of the trailers again, but these reactions definitely have me pretty darn excited. So another film that I'm definitely excited for that also premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and that is Judy. So right now, Judy, I mean, which is the autobiography film on Judy Garland, and who played by Renee Zellweger in this. So right now it has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes with only 18 reviews, so it's not much. I mean, definitely has a far way to go. But I love the trailers for this film. Make sure to check out my trailer reactions again. But I love the trailers for this film, and it has pretty solid reactions. It has basically, even people who like it, they don't love it, at least what I've seen. So some of the reactions. First reaction comes from Johanna Schneller, who says, "This is one of those solo turns where the star performance matters more than the story, and Renee Zellweger, playing the legendary singer Judy Garland in her sad last months, broke, anxious, drunk, but still in it, gives it everything she's got." And again, that's kind of the thing that I've been seeing, is that Renee Zellweger carries it, and it's definitely more about like the Judy Garland. I mean, it's called Judy for a reason, but that the story isn't really the best, I hear. But another reaction coming from Joe Morgenstern from the Wall Street Journal says, "Singing in her own voice, body hunched and eyes squinting against the light, summons up the desperate fervor," which, by the way, I don't even know what fervor is. I haven't even heard of that word before, so that's like, whoa. And but he continues by saying that of a woman who has lived most of her life on a parallel starvation diets, one lacking for food and the other for love. So I kind of like that, even though I don't know what fervor means, but the rest of that sounds pretty good. But so another reaction coming from Eric Kahn from IndieWire says, "Garland's legacy may be tricked to recreate her legacy, perhaps too large for any biopic to contain, but the music speaks for itself." And get it? Music speaks for itself. But I mean, that's one of the more negative ones. The common reactions that I've seen from the people who don't like it say, yeah, it's a tricky thing to make a movie about, but it does its best. That's what I kind of see. Kevin Mayer says from the Times in UK, says, "A secret weapon in this case, however, and what lifts this film far above the competition is its lead actress, Renee Zellweger." So again, more buzz for Renee Zellweger. Will probably be nominated for an Oscar, and I'm sure when I see it, I'll most likely agree with it, or not. You never know. But Stephen Farber from The Hollywood Reporter says, "Gould's movie sometimes stumbles, but it made one indispensable choice in finding the right actress to channel the diva." So that again. Overall, the movie isn't the best, but Renee Zellweger is just too good. That's what we also see. Another reaction coming from K. Austin Collins is probably the last one I read, who says, "The best thing about Judy, perhaps, is that while it focuses overly on the tragedy of her late career, it is nevertheless a compelling document of a movie who constantly gave of herself." Now, again, so overall the consensus is Renee Zellweger is utterly fantastic, one of her best, just some of her best work. Just what they did with Judy Garland was great, but overall, just the narrative wasn't there, was not the best. It stumbles a few times, but Renee Zellweger is just so good, and just absolutely the performance just carries the movie. Which, I mean, I would have liked to seen better, to be honest, from this movie, because I hope, at least for me, that the narrative does hold up with the performance, but at least from these reactions it doesn't. But who knows, everything's subjective. We'll find out. So a couple other films that premiered at the Venice Film Festival. One of them was The Laundromat, which stars Meryl Streep, Gary Oldman, and Antonio Banderas, and a couple of other people. So this is a Netflix film. Netflix is just kicking all sorts of booty. It's absolutely insane. But this movie isn't getting as much love as, let's say, an Ad Astra or Joker. You can even say Judy. It's not getting as much positive vibes as a Judy is, because right now it has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes with 22 reviews in right now. So let's start off with the reaction. So David Sexton from the London Evening Standard says this scrappy episodic movie ends with Streep stripping off her disguise to harangue us on what it means that democracy's checks and balances have failed so badly, but then this whole film is an indigent lecture. So I mean, that's not the best. I mean, that's not horrible, but it's not the best. And another reaction from Eric Kahn from IndieWire again says the laundromat. The laundromat may be blunt and the humor is hit or miss, but it swings wildly at a worthy target and eventually hits its mark. So that's good. Stephanie Zacharik, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, from Time Magazine says most of the movie is bitterly funny, some of it just amusingly droll. Never heard of that one. I mean, what is it with these words, man? But the finale, a relying cry that's both galvanizing and wistful, is a wrap-up worth waiting for. So that's good. That's good. Raphael Abraham says Soderbergh keeps things loose and uses much fourth wall breaking and comic digression to avoid a didactic tone and in a county hopping series of vignettes. We see the vicious cycle of money laundering and exposing and satirized. Man, first of all, well, the reactions are split, obviously, but these words, man, these critics gotta use smaller words for Kid Kritic, because, you know, Kid Kritic is just a kid. Goodness gracious. But basically, again, the overall thing about this movie, I mean, the performances are fine, but overall it's just dull and it doesn't work. At least that's what kind of I see. But some people who liked it said that it was really good. Not really good. It was good. That the third act was awesome, and that's kind of what you see from the people who didn't like it and liked it. I mean, I'm not totally hyped to see this movie. I like the trailer. I didn't love it. I mean, this movie has a big cast. I mean, you have Antonio Banderas, Gary Oldman, Meryl Streep, and it's directed by David Soderbergh. So yeah, that's The Laundromat. But another film that's also Netflix. It's insane. Netflix is just insane, absolutely insane. I think Roma just taught them that, like, man, we can actually do something with these Oscar potential films. So the next one is Marriage Story, which again is a Netflix film, and it comes out this fall, and right now has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes with 34 reviews. It stars Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. And, I mean, the trailers were great. I love the trailers for this movie. I literally just saw them because I didn't know much about this movie until before these reviews. But let's check out some of these reviews/reactions. And Joe Morgenstern says from Wall Street Journal, a 137-minute depiction of a marriage coming apart in which unusual intimacy is created paradoxically by big and spirited performances. Let's see here. David Sexton again says, Marriage Story is a fearsome, cautionary tale, long and painfully detailed, a divorced horror story to put alongside Kramer versus Kramer. Oof. Stephanie Zacharik, again from Time Magazine, says, I suspect almost anyone who has dissolved a seemingly perfect union can relate to at least some of the Marriage Story, especially if there are children involved. Interesting. Scott Menzel from We Live Entertainment says, brutally honest, raw, and heartbreaking. Marriage Story is Noah Baumbach's, right? Is that how you say his last name? The filmmaker of the movie. Crowning achievement as a filmmaker, so that's awesome to hear. Walter Chaw says, Marriage Story respects not only its cast enough to give them room to fully inhabit a person and that person's space, but also its audience enough to resist easy manipulations and the instinct to want to switch sides. Now, this movie sounds awesome. I cannot wait to see this film. I mean, Netflix, they're really stepping up their game when it comes to, like, these Oscar potential films. I mean, you hear that this movie is just heartbreaking. It's very honest, and the performances are fantastic. And, I mean, I love Scarlett Johansson. I love Adam Driver. So, I mean, you have Lauren Dern in there. You have Ray Liotta himself in this film, and I cannot wait. You have Alan Alda in there, and I'm sure it's going to be heartbreaking time, I guess. So yeah, there's that. And the last film we will be talking about today that premiered at the Venice Film Festival is Robert Pattinson's and Willem Dafoe's The Lighthouse. So this film's also doing pretty good for itself. It currently has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes with 65 reviews in. So the more people have seen this film. So some of the reactions say, so Brian Tellerico says from RogerEbert.com, says, well, it's ultimately a bit too self-conscious to provoke that existential dread and true terror of the best films like it. It's still an impressive accomplishment thanks to Edgar's fearlessness and a pair of completely committed performances. Whoa. Ben Kroll from The Wrap just says, it rocks. That's, get it? Because the lighthouse is surrounded by rocks. Get it? Yeah. But Peter Howell says, a psychological nightmare that gnaws at the brain long after the disturbing final image assaults the retina. Again, no clue what retina is, but that's also a pretty good reaction. I'm telling you, these words. Oh. But, maybe my vocabulary just sucks, which I won't be surprised. But Ashley Menzel from We Live Entertainment, who is not a big fan of the movie, says, an intriguing premise and stellar performances by the two actors are the shining lights of the film, but it tends to deviate too much to the payoff in the end. Alright. Chris Boombray says, from Joe Blow's movie, says, beautifully shot and acted, and an atmospheric horror movie that brings to mind Val Lewin. That sounds pretty nice if you ask me. Courtney Small says, while Edgar's distinct vision is astonishing, the film thrives thanks to the fearless work by Dafoe and Pattinson. So overall, you just hear that this film is probably going to be a somber one. The performances are absolutely phenomenal. The payoff is really good. However, some people are not such a big fan of the payoff. But, I mean, and they also say that this is probably some of the best. People also say that this is like some of Robert Eggers' best work, so that's also pretty nice. So those are some of the films that premiered at the Venice Film Festival. I mean, from Joker to Ad Astra to Judy to Marriage Story to The Lighthouse, and who knows, maybe I'll like The Laundromat. But, I mean, we got a great lineup coming up, and I cannot wait to see these films. Some of these I get to watch on my television because it's going to go on Netflix, so I cannot wait to see that. Put down in the comment section below, what did you think of some of these reactions coming out of these films? And by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Joker had an 8-minute standing ovation. That is absolutely insane. I mean, when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood premiered and they talk about a 6-minute standing ovation, I'm like, nah, you're crazy. But then they posted a video and I was like, oh man, I mean, what is it with these standing ovations? I mean, your hands will start hurting, your feet will start hurting. I mean, whoa. It's absolutely insane with these standing ovations. But I'm definitely hyped for all these films, and that kind of sums up the 11th episode of the Kid Kritic Mvie Podcast. We talked about a lot of good stuff. We talked about The Mandalorian. We talked about the Dave Chappelle special. We talked about Tomb Raider 2, a little bit about Spider-Man, and obviously the Venice Film Festival, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. And with that said, tell me down in the comment section below, what do you think of some of these topics that we talked about on today's episode? We also talked about some trailers as well. And make sure to follow Kid Kritic in the Instagrams at KidKritic1. And do not forget to subscribe. Look out for the next episode of the Kid Kritic Mvie Podcast, where we talk about movies and all that other fun stuff. I think next episode I'll probably do a spoiler review for It Chapter 2, so definitely look out for that. Please look out for the next episode of the Kid Kritic Mvie Podcast, where we talk about movies and all that other fun stuff. And as Kid Kritic always says, you guys know, peace.